Good morning, everybody. As we go to the Chitas of today, today is Monday, we're holding the second reading in the portion of Shlach. We're holding on chapter 13 in the book of Bamidbar, the book of Numbers, chapter 13, verse 21. They went up and they explored the land. In Midbar Tzin, from the desert of Zin, Ad Rechoiv till Rechoiv, Lavei Chamos, to come to Chamos. She says they walked along the width of the borders, so that the path looked like a Greek gamma. They walked along the side, which was the southern border from the eastern corner to the western corner, as Moshe Rabbeinu directed them. Go up in the way of the south, by the way of the southern eastern border, until the sea. And the sea was its western border till today. For there they return and walk along the entire western border, which is the coast, until the entrance of Hamatz, which is near Mount Har, which is in northern the Galil. They went up all the way from the Gaza, all the way on the beach, all the way up to Mount Har, in the northwestern corner, as described in the borders of the land, in the portions of later on, which talks about Maseh, where it talks about where the borders were. And then they went up into the south of Hebron. They came until Hebron. And over there lived Achiman and Sheish and Talmud Yelidei Anok. They were the descendants of giants. The Hebron Shava Shan Nifsav Neitzei Mitzrayim, and Hebron was built 7 years before the city of Tzayin in Mitzrayim. Rashi says Vayavar is singular, so what do you mean he came there? So the Gemara, it says in the Medrash that Kalev went there alone, hence the singular he came there. Vayavar. What did he come to? He came there to come to the graves of the patriarchs, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and prayer. For he had not been enticed. He came to pray that he should not be enticed by his colleagues to be part of their council. Thus it says, I'll give Kalev, that's related, the Torah promises Kalev gives him a gift. He gave him the land which he walked on. It's written, they gave Hebron, he gave Kalev, he gave Hebron. Sheva Shan and Nimnasa. Ashi says, is it possible that Chum built Hebron for Canaan, his youngest son, before he built Tzayin from Mitzrayim, his eldest son? Doesn't make sense. Rather, it's stocked with everything good 7 times more than Tzayin, meaning that Hebron was nicer than Tzayin 7 times, not in years, but in beauty and everything that it had in it. For there is no place in the land of Israel rockier than Hebron, if you ever go to Hebron, which was why it was designated for a burial place. And there's no country in the world that's excellent as Egypt. As it says, like the garden of the Lord is the land of Egypt. Tzayin was the best part of Egypt, where the residence of the kings was situated there. As it says, the princes were Tzayin. But the beauty of Hebron is superior to us. Hebron is superior, even though it's the lowest land in superiority in the land of Israel, than the beauty of Mitzrayim. They came to the valley of Eshkol. They cut off a branch. The Eshkol, and a cluster of Anovin, a cluster of grapes. Echad, one cluster of grapes. They carried it on poles. Between 2 people. And they took from the pomegranates and from the figs. Now she says a vine branch with cluster of grapes hanging. It was extremely a big cluster of grapes. By from the implication, what it says, they carried it in a plural on a pole. Do you not know that it was carried by 2? So what does it mean to tell us? The answer is with 2 poles, not by 2, but 2 poles. So it's now 4. How was it done? 8 of them took a cluster of grapes. 1 took a fig. So it took them 8 people to carry this cluster of grapes. 1 took a fig and 1 took a pomegranate. Yeshua and Kalev didn't take anything. For the intentions of the others was to present a slanderous report, namely, just as the fruit is extraordinary, so the people extraordinary. If you wish to know how much one of them carried, go forth and learn the stone they set in Galil. It says each man carried on his shoulder one stone from the Jordan and set it in Gilgal. The sages weighed them and determined that each stone weighed 40 sa. And in fact, that the load of a person carrying his shoulder is 1/3 of the weight the load carry with when others help him to lift. So now go evaluate how heavy these grapes were. Extremely heavy grapes. They called it Nachal Eshkel. They were so amazed by this cluster of grapes. Al Eidas Eshkel, because of the cluster of grapes. Ashakarish Mishamrei, so with the Jewish people cut off. Verse 25, they came back from scattering the land. They took 40 days. It took them 40 days to go and to come back. She says, but doesn't the land measure 400 parses by 400 parses? A parse is equivalent to 3.5 miles in length. So this is walking. It would take longer. An average person daily travels different of 10 parses. So thus it takes 40 days to walk from east to west. And they traveled its length and its breadth. However, since it was revealed before one, must be that they would sentence them with a year per day. Therefore, he shortened their way, called Kfitzes Haderech, and they covered ground quickly. The Eibishter wanted that they shouldn't be longer than 40 days. They came and they came before Moshe. Aladdin and before Aladdin and Vakoladas Bnei Yisrael to the entire Jewish nation, Lamid Baparan to the land, to the desert of Kadeshim. Yeshiva Isam David, they brought back word. Velkas Kala Eda and the entire nation by Yidrum as Peter Aretz, and they showed him the land, the fruit of the land. Rashi says, what does it mean they went? We know they went. It says already that they returned, to compare their going to coming. Just as the return was evil, so to the departure was a little bit of evil. Yeshiva Isam David, Rashi says to Moshe and Adam. And they told him, they said, we came to land which you sent us. It's like a land of milk and honey, no question about it. And this is its fruit. Now she says any lie in which it has a little truth is not stated in the beginning cannot maintain to the end. So therefore, they knew they had to add some lie, some truth to the story. But the problem is 28 Efes ki azam. However, the people who inhabit the land are mighty. And they live in cities extreme, huge, and fortified. We saw there the offsprings of giants. Now she just says Betzurais is the Targum says is the lotion of strength. Verse 29. Amalek lives in the land. Be'eretz HaNegev, in the southern part of the land. Hachiti, Vusi, the Hittites and the Vusites, Va'amoidi and the Jebusites and the Memorites, Yeshev Bahar, they're living in the mountains. Va'knani, Yeshev Alayam, and the Canaanites live on the coast, Al Yadin, and alongside the Jordan. Now she says Amalek, they mention Amalek since they already know that they've been burnt by Amalek. So that's the first thing they mention. Because Amalek, they knew Amalek. Amalek came out to go out against him. Now she says on the Jordan, as it says next to the Jordan. So they said, listen, the Canaanites are living against the Jordan. You're not going to be able to penetrate them. Verse 2, Moshe silenced the people to hear about Moshe. But he said, don't worry, we'll go up. But we'll inherit it. For we can indeed overcome it. Now she says, he silenced them, meaning the spies, so the people could hear what he was saying. Al Moshe, to hear what he would say about Moshe. He cried out, is this the only thing that the son of Amram done to him? God to us, anyone listening might have thought that he intended to disparage him, he sent to attack Moshe Rabbeinu. And since there was a resentment in their hearts against Moshe, because of right now what the spies said, they all became silent. Oh, it's a Kalev. Even Kalev's going to talk about Moshe Rabbeinu. Everybody got quiet. Kalev is going to talk about Moshe Rabbeinu. But he said, did he not split the sea for us? Did he not bring the mun down for us? Did he not cause the quail to come? What are you complaining about Moshe? Allah Nala, even to heaven, if he tells us, if Moshe Rabbeinu tells us, make ladders and go up to heavens, we'll succeed what he says. Moshe Rabbeinu knows what he's talking about. Vayas lashon shtika, the term, concept of silence. Verse 31, and the people that went up with him, they went up with him. All Amru, they said, we are unable to go up to this nation. Which is too powerful for us. Mimena from him. Actually says, what do you mean man from him, which is interpreted as stronger than he? Who is he? Reference God. God cannot do this. And they brought out the evil report about the land that they came to scout. To the children of Israel. We said they said the land that we went through, to go through it, to scout it, to spy on it. It's a land that eats its inhabitants. All the people that we saw there, they're men of stature. As he says, wherever we passed, we found them burying the dead. They were busy always with the burial. So they said, look at that. This is a country that everybody's dying in. The Holy One, blessed be, intended for good, to keep them occupied. So the Eibishter wanted they should be able to see the land. People are going to see, what is the 12 guys walking through the land? So the Eibishter made that they were busy with the funerals. God made they were busy with funerals. But they took it in a negative way. So they should notice them. Anshe Midas, what it means, men of stature, big and tall. Those whose measurements are attributed because of their unusual size, like Goliath. It says his weight was his height was 6 cubits and a span similar to a great man's murder. Giants, these were giants. Verse 33, Veshamarina, son of Philim, over there we saw the giants, Bnei Anak, the sons of Anak, Bnei Philim, the descendants of giants. In our eyes, we seem like grasshoppers. And so we were in their eyes. Now she says, Nephilim is Anakim, giants, descendants of Shamzi and Azel, who fell in the heaven generations of Enosh. That's a story where it says that the Bnei Elikim, they fell down to the world. We heard them telling each other, there are ants in the vineyard who look like people. There's somebody crawling in our gardens. Anak, meaning Anak is given because the sun was draped around their neck. They were so gigantic that the sun they used to eclipse the sun, so to say, that they almost didn't. You couldn't see the sun because of this because of them. And the entire community raised their voice and they shouted. And the Jewish people cried at that night. What means all the congregation? She says, Sanhedrin, this was the Sanhedrin. The court itself cried. All the children of Israel complained to Moshe and Israel and the entire Jewish people. He said to them, if you only would have died in Egypt, die in the desert. We should better die here than die in Israel. Verse number 3, why did the Lord bring us to this land to fall in the sword? Our wives and our children will be for spoil. Maybe it's better for us to return to Egypt. One man said to the other, Nitna Reish V'Nashuv Mitzrayim, let us appoint a leader and return to Egypt. Now she says, Nitna Reish, let us appoint a leader, let us appoint a king over us. Our sages have explained the term referring to idolatry. Yipo Moshe Adam fell on their faces. They call in front of the old Jewish people. Yeshua ben Nun v'Kalev ben Yefunah min Atorim, and Yeshua ben Nun and Kalev ben Yefunah were also the ones who scouted the land. Karo b'gneihem tore their clothes. When they said they'll call Das b'nei Yisrael, they said to the Jewish people, Lamer saying, said the land that we went to scout, the land is beautiful. 1 second. Hello. Okay, I'm sorry. Okay, now we go to the Tanya of the day. We're holding in the middle of chapter 6 of Tanya. The Alter Rebbe is explaining us something, a very deep concept of Chassidus and Kabbalah, which is called the Skalas HaMidas, which is the inclusion of the Midas, meaning that even though there are Midas in the Eibishter, in the Arizal, the Kabbalah, explains the concept of Midoishes Shel HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the attributes of God, Chesed, Gevurah, Tiferes, and we learned there are 10 attributes, 3 intellectual, 7 emotional, 6 emotional, and then Malchus. So once you come into a midah, once you come into an attribute, like the example Chesed, and then also the 2 main attributes, Chesed and Gevurah, once you come to the attribute of kindness and severity, these are 2 opposites. And if the 2 opposites, how do 2 opposites come together? But in the world of Atzilus, even though you have Chesed and you have Gevurah, because there's a concept of something that's greater than them, which is Oyer Ein Sof, since the God comes into the situation, so therefore there can be the concept, what's called the Skalos HaMidas, Zu B'Zu, the concept of the inclusion that the Chesed and Gevurah are work together in unity, because they comprehend their purpose, and their purpose, and when the purpose is in focus, is in total focus, then the purpose is greater than their singularity, and therefore they are totally inclusive in one. As, so to say, the Ur of God, so to say, hides itself in these worlds. So then you have the concept of the separation of midas. Then Chesed is Chesed and Gevurah is Gevurah. So too in our lives we have Chesed and Gevurah. Seemingly they're opposites, and that's why sometimes we're happy and sometimes we're sad, and sometimes we're good and sometimes we're the opposite, and etc. So we have these 2 expressions, totally 2 different expressions that they deal in 2 different times. But we have to learn to Skalos HaMidas. We should have Chesed and Chesed, Gevurah should be Chesed, so that there should be the unity of these 2 things. Unity means that each work, even though unity doesn't mean that Chesed takes over Gevurah, or Gevurah becomes Chesed. It's Gevurah should be Chesed. So that means that the Gevurah and Chesed realize that they're on the same team. And there's a time when Chesed is expressed through Chesed itself, and there's a time that Chesed is expressed through Gevurah, actually. We call it sometimes in tough love. So there's a concept of where Chesed comes through Gevurah. It's not a contradiction to it, because actually the only way it could be revealed is through Gevurah. That this Chesed should be revealed, it only could be revealed through Gevurah. And that's the beauty of this Skalos HaMidas, that it doesn't have to be each one is exclusive, and the Chesed is Chesed and Gevurah is Gevurah, and they always need to be separate. No, we need to have the unity, the Skalos, the inclusion of one or the other. And this is a very deep concept in Chassidus, which is ultimately a very deep concept within ourselves, to be able to have Skalos HaMidas, to be able to have inclusion of one and the other. Skalos HaMidas Zu B'Zu, for the mutual inclusion of the attributes, their opposite nature notwithstanding, Even though Chesed and Gevurah are opposite, they are totally opposite. Nevertheless, the Eibishter gave Nidalai and Dirgam Echad. Is evident that he and his causations, his attributes are one. So where do you see the Eibishter where do you see God in a situation where there's a scholars, where there's God, there's unity. That's why Hashem Echad. Where there's God, there's unity. When you take away God from the situation, you have a disunity because it's impossible to be a unity between these two concepts because they're two opposites. When you have God within the picture, so God demands, like a king. The example, the king, when the king's in the room, all the ministers are one because each one is bottled to the king. When the king leaves the room, now you have inner fighting politics between one minister and another minister because the king has left the room. So now the ego comes out. Now each minister's ego comes out. When the Eibishter is in the room, so to say, when God's revealed in the room, because God is always in the room, when the Eibishter reveals himself in the room, in the world of Atzilus, where God reveals himself in a much greater concept of revelation, then Chesed and Gevurah realize they're bottled to the source, and therefore they realize that they're Chesed because the Eibishter wants to be Chesed, therefore there's no contradiction between Chesed and Gevurah. For since they're completely united with him, with God. So therefore, they become united. We call us Zumi and they comprise of one another. Therefore, Chesed understands without Gevurah, he's not Chesed. And Gevurah understands without Chesed, he's not either good. And therefore, they realize that actually we need each other. And we need to work together to make a perfect concept. And why? Because since they themselves, so to say, the attribute itself realizes its source. So the attribute realizes that it's not about Chesed, it's about God. And if it's about God, sometimes you need to have Gevurah. And Gevurah realizes it's not about Gevurah, it's about God. And therefore, it needs to be Chesed Shebe Gevurah. K'mayim Eliyahu has brought down the statement of Elijah, we say before Shabbos, which is a statement of the Zohar, onto the Koshelam Yachadon. The passage beginning of Pasuk Eliyahu in the deduction of Tikkun Zohar, which we say Friday night before Mincha, you are he who binds them, Spheres and the attributes together, Miachadlon, Ubar Minach, and united. And a part of you, less Yichud B'Ilah. There's no unity amongst these attributes above. This is impossible because Chesed is Chesed and Gevurah is Gevurah. So without the Eibishter, without a revelation of God, you don't have the concept of Askalus Hamidus. You don't have the concept of the inclusions and the unity of these attributes. The Alter Rebbe will say a little later, since the divine name Elokim signifies the attribute of tzimtzum and concealment is one of the names of God, it follows that the concealment brought about by the name Elokim is not a true concealment. It's there to reveal. It's there, so it's really not concealment because it's there to reveal. Why did God conceal it? Because he wants to have a revelation that is available, capable for the recipient. So therefore, this concealment is revelation. For the entire, because the entity cannot conceal itself on itself. So since it's God, it's not concealment. That's number one. I'm sorry, there's even step even a higher concept. That since it's God himself who's concealing himself, so it's not concealment. Created beings are therefore absolutely nullified in relation to their source. So therefore, even as it's concealed, it's truly revealed. Because by the Eibush, there's no concealment. So concealment is the concept of God as revelation is God. So thus like revelation, thus like God cannot hide himself from himself. So therefore, this concealment is thus an illusion, or basically it's thus for something else, but not for itself. Because itself cannot be concealed. I said a different concept. This is a deeper concept. This is a much more deeper concept. So this concept that the Eibishter cannot hide for himself, but he does hide. He does have a concealment, but that's not for himself. So the concealment concerning himself is not a concealment. And therefore, to God, there's no difference between something that's revealed and something that's concealed. And that's why you understand the concept that the Eibishter is the same before creation and after creation. Because creation doesn't change anything in God, because both of them are part of God. before creation and after creation, all part of all God's, it's all part of God's existence. And by God, there's no difference. This is what's written in the pasuk. It says in the verse, and you take onto your heart that Havaya Yutke Vavke is Elikim. Two different names, but it's the same name, same God. Not two gods, Chas v'Shalom, even though he has two names. Havaya Yutke Vavke, which is the concept of infinity, Ein Sof, is Elikim, is the same concept of Elikim, which is nature. So concerning this verse, the question was asked in the first chapter. Would it occur to you that there's a God soaking in the waters beneath the earth, so that it's necessary to caution us so strongly and negate this thought by stating that one should take it to heart that Hashem hu Elokim, b'shamayim imav v'arutz b'tachas einoid. We have to tell a person that there's only one God. No, we're telling the person as follows. According to the explanation here, the question is answered. The statement is, in the heavens above and upon the earth below, there's no other. It's not intended to negate the existence of another God. Chas v'shalom, you don't need to negate that. Rather, the verse is telling us there's nothing else besides God. He alone enjoys true existence. Everything else is totally nullified in relation to him. So therefore, even as the world stands with Shem Elokim, and therefore it feels its own existence, but it's not true. Its true existence is God. And for this concept to be understood well, one must take a deed to heart. For this truly, that you're just not saying it as a statement, but you really truly comprehend the statement that the truth is nothing but God. That you have to take to heart, because ultimately humanity feels like its own independent existence. It is one thing in the world that feels its own true existence as a human being, because everything else in the world doesn't have free choice besides a human being. So a human being truly needs to take to heart that in truth is that everything is existence. Even his own existence is because God's existence. Pirush, which the meaning of the verse is, these two names of God, although Havaya represents Chesed and revelation, and Elokim represents Tzimtzum, which is Gevura, concealment. But in truth, they are one. They are one, Heim Echad Mamish, they're literally one. Even the name Elokim, which conceals and contracts the light. Bechinas Chesed is the divine life force that is responsible for creation, is the quality of Chesed. K'may Shem Havaya, like the name of God. It's does Gevura shebechesed. It's the attribute of Gevura in Chesed. For the attributes of God, blessed be, unite with him in a complete unity. As the verse says, he and his name is one. Because the attributes are the names of God. There are 7 names of God. Shiva Shema Shein Lechakim. There are 7 names of God, so to say, that you're not allowed to erase, which is to the 7 attributes of God. So they are Shmeisa the expression of his attributes are his name, and his name is one with him. So the attributes correspond to a specific name. Mimkain. So since it's so, once you understand that the name that Elokim is one with Havaya, then you'll come to the realization that in the heavens above and the earth below, what's the difference between the heavens above and the earth below? Einoid. There's nothing. Because all the heavens above and the earth below means all the spirituality, all the physicality, all the greatness, all the small things. Everything is Einoid, is but God. There exists nothing else besides God. God is a true existence, and everything else exists from God. And therefore, ultimately, everything is reliant on God's existence. Therefore, everything is nothing. and their own existence is God's existence. That's the true existence. Pirush. The Hebrew phrase means that even the material earth, which appears to everyone's eyes as actually existence, is not and utter nothingness in relation, Legabe HaKadosh Baruch Hu, relation to the Holy One, blessed be. Because the name, what you say, but the name Elokim creates. The name Elokim only obscures and contracts the light to the nether creatures, collects that to us. To us, Elokim hides the light, not to God. To God cannot hide from himself, so that they perceive themselves as possessing an independent existence. Not to God, because he and his name, all his name, even name Shem Elokim, is one. Hence, the name Elokim cannot possibly act like an concealment from him himself. And therefore, and therefore, even the earth which is below, and ayim ve'efes mamish, are naught and utter nothingness, like Abba Kodesh Baruch Hu, in comparison to the Holy One, blessed be. And they're not called by name at all, really. The words should not be called. Shouldn't even have a name. Afilu b'shem oid, shu shem tafel. Ein oid is nothing else. There's nothing else. Really shouldn't even have a name, which indicates subservient. As expression the Gemara, statement of sage blessed Yehuda v'Olikra, does a verse of the Torah require secondary substitution to the custom of the land of Yehuda? Do I need Yehuda, a custom of the Jewish nation, and a verse? Doesn't make sense. Once you have the verse, who needs the custom? Yehuda v'Olikra, it's expression the Gemara. So once you have a concept of a custom, v'Olikra, Void, I don't need it because the Yehud is bottled to the verse. Yehud is bottled to the verse. You does see the term oid signifies a secondary concept. So if I don't need it, guf shu tafel in the shama, like the body. So too in the case of the body, which is subservient to the soul, the chayish b'teicha and the life force within it. For which reason it was referred to as oid. There's a oid. There's also a body. Hallelujah Hashem b'chayai, Hallelujah b'chayai azam elakai ba'oidi. I will praise Havaya with my life, meaning with my soul, and I'll sing to Elekai, to my Lord, ba'oidi, with my body. So ba'oidi is secondary. I'll sing to God, Yudke Vavke, with my soul, because my soul comprehends God's infinity because it's part of God's infinity. But I'll sing out with my body, ba'oidi. We thus see that the body is again called oid, which is oid. It's extra, like a secondary concept. Because the body, it thinks it has its own existence, but it doesn't have its own existence. In so much as it's subservient to the soul. Really, it doesn't have an existence. Its whole existence is the soul. Without the soul, the body has no existence, even though it's there, really. But it needs the soul for its existence. The reason the term Elekai is used, connection and body of this song, is because the life of the soul is derived from the Yudke Vavke, Va'oid, and the Oid, the extra, the next, the Tafel, the secondary concept, which is the body, is subservient from the name Elokim. So therefore, the only reason why you have a body is a lakai, is the concept of Shem Elokim. That's why I have a body to begin with. But it's subservient to the Shem Havaya. It's subservient to the Shem Havaya. Therefore, it's va'oid and also. Va'oid is when also comes to the word also. Va'oid is everlasting, but also. But there's also. Va'oid lika, also a verse. Also. You thus see that the body is nullified in relation to the soul. To the extent of oid, meaning it's subservient to it. It is not, however, nullified out of existence in relation to the soul. To Why isn't it totally nullified when the soul, God forbid, leaves the body? The body doesn't disappear. Because ultimately, your soul gives life to the body. Your soul doesn't give it its existence. Because the physical is given not by the soul itself. Guf was created by God. And therefore, the body is not totally nullified to the soul. The example is not a totally great example as the soul to the body, to the world, to God. Because soul to the body, the soul gives life to the body, but it's not mahava the body. The soul did not create the body. The Eibishter created the body as a separate entity. The soul gives life to the body. And therefore, there's a difference. The soul gives life to the body, and therefore, when the soul leaves the body has its own existence. It takes time for the body to ultimately, from earth to come, earth to return. But the soul gives life to the body. The Eibishter not only gives life to the world, the Eibishter creates the world. It's a whole different reality. For the soul does not bring the body into existence for nothing. It provides it with life. The body is therefore called oid, secondary to the soul, in so much as its soul is provide the body with life. But if you want to talk about God, that gives existence right now, not only when he created the world, but gives existence to the world right now. So now it's not secondary, it's nothing. The soul to the body is secondary to the soul. The world and everything in the world, including me, to God is not secondary. We're not secondary to God. God is primary and we are secondary. God is everything and we are nothing. Because the Eibishter gives us our existence. Doesn't just give us our life. Mechaya u'mahava. The Eibishter gives life and gives existence. And therefore, the Ein Oid Mulvada in our verse, Ein Oid Mulvada is not secondary. We're nothing. Everything is absolutely nullified in relation to him, even greater than the body to the soul. Just as the light of the sun. So that's why Chassidus, we have these two examples. The example of Oir HaShemesh, the light of the sun, and then we have the body to the body to the guf. And they're both good examples, but both not completely such great examples, because it's only an analogy. Because self-understood, the Oir there's in one hand much deeper concept of the soul in the body, because the soul comes within the body. The sun shines above the earth. We don't see the way the sun, even though ultimately everything grows from the sun. But we have a much greater example, pnimis and chetzenis, from the soul in the body. But ultimately, there's a big. Ultimately, the soul doesn't give life, doesn't give existence to the body. The soul gives life to the body, and the body has its existence from created by God. The body, as we see in the Torah, the Eibishter created two entities in a human being. He created the body, and he created the soul. Therefore, the body, in essence, also we believe that the body exists also. Thus, that the soul exists forever. The body also has its ever existence. And that's why we believe in the resurrection of the dead. That ultimately every body will be resurrected. Because it's still here, the guf agashmi, and that's why we're into the concept of burial, that we should have a body. There's always should be a body, a guf, in this world, and a place to go to where the body is, because we believe in also in the concept of the body. That the Eibishter will, that there's, even if the body, some bodies, if they're hundreds and thousands of years, even the bones disintegrate, but there is a luz. We always believe in the concept of luz. There is a part of the physical body that never goes away, because the body also is created by God, gave it a nitzchias to the body in a way. But nevertheless, the body and the soul have two different existences in a way. The Eibishter created the body as a guf gashmi, and he created the soul of different entities, much more spiritual entity. And therefore, the Eibishter wanted that the soul give life to the body. but ultimately the body has its own existence. Therefore, the body ain't oid. That we say oid by the body means it's secondary. The body needs to feel secondary to the soul. The primary is your soul. The body is secondary. Even though, as when a person passes away, God forbid, we have to show respect to the body, al pi halacha, because the body is as important. But the better example concerning HaKadosh Baruch Hu, at least, is the sun and its ray. Because without the sun, the ray has no existence whatsoever. The ray of the sun is not secondary to the sun. The ray of the sun is the sun. And without the sun, it's no ray. So too, the world was created by the Eirah Shel HaKadosh Baruch Hu. The world was created and it continues its creation, its existence, because God wants it to exist. God continuously gives it existence, and therefore its existence is only God. And without God, you have no existence. So therefore, it's better in that aspect. It's a better example of the ray of the sun to the sun than the soul to the body. And that completes the Tanya of the day. Today is the 18th day of the month, which is chapter 88 and 89. If you do those two chapters, you do the chitas of the day. Shem, see you tomorrow. We'll continue the chitas today. Also, I want to remind everybody that if you're in Florida, at least, there's an unbelievable program of unity coming together. All Chabad houses throughout the land of Florida are coming together to honor the Rebbe tonight at 7:30 at the Rick Case Arena in Davie. And at 7:30, it's going to be an unbelievable event. Thousands of people are coming together to honor the Rebbe on the 30th year of his yahrzeit, which is Gimel Tammuz. I hope that all of you can participate, men, women, and children, come together with all Chabad houses, with Jews throughout the state, and everybody's welcome to come. And you can go to 3/3 of Tammuz event.com and sign up that you're coming tonight to this unbelievable event of unity for all Jews in Florida. It's tonight again. So I hope you'll see you there all tonight. Wish you all a wonderful and beautiful day. And we'll see you tomorrow morning, 8 o'clock. We'll continue the chitas of the day.
Thank you.